places that we need to be live in. Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? And Pete is back in the building.
I'm here. What's up?
Alrighty. Just need to see why. Delay, but that's okay. All right. So for everybody that's here, welcome to the charge. Of course, this is your boy Bernie along with Pete. Giving you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Let me just switch over to the other side so you guys can see Pete.
What's up, guys?
And today we are going to be kind of discussing a lot of different things. Clearly, as you can tell by the title, kind of a little bit of a clickbait, talking about the NBA media company in shambles and bankrupt. So we'll talk about that. And a little bit more of a serious note. We're going to talk about contenders and pretenders in the NBA, and then also talk about a little bit in that, talking about a certain team with a certain superstar player that's very frustrated at the current moment. So without further ado, before we do get started, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff helps out the channel tremendously and lets people know that, hey, you're interested in watching The Charge. And I hope everyone is having a fantastic Sunday, like I said in the previous stream. I was trying to connect to Kick and was not able to do so. So that's something that I'm going to have to play around with a little bit later on a later date. So stay tuned for that as we continue to try different platforms, try different places out because, can't be streaming always in one place and you need to be able to stream in multiple avenues because everyone wants to try new and different things. But without further ado, let's get started let's just start with the first news. And that's, of course, the title of this whole video. NBA company or NBA media company bankrupt. And here is what the article says really quick. Going to Warner Brothers Discovery tells teams it's leaving Root Sports Network's business. If you guys don't know, Root Sports Network covers a multitude of different areas, the Denver, Houston, Pittsburgh, and, of course, the Seattle area. So let's start off with talking about the article really quick. So it says Warner Brothers Discovery has told teams. Whoopsie, one second. Warner Brothers Discovery has told teams that it plans to exit its regional sports network business entirely within the next several weeks. The company, which operates 3 AT&T Sportsnet's brand channels in Denver, Houston, and Pittsburgh, and has a minority stake in Root Sports Channel in Seattle, has told teams that they have until March 31st to reach a full agreement to take their rights back. And if Root Sports Networks can't reach a deal with those teams, the channel eventually plans to move forward with the Chapter 7 liquidation filing. Just really quick, this is kind of the team that Warner Brothers Discovery has teams with or deals with. It has 4 MLB teams with the Astro, Mariners, and Pirates and Rockies. 3 NBA teams, the Blazers, Jazz, and Rockets. 3 NHL teams, the Kraken, Penguins, and the Golden Knights. And this is, of course, a time when Warner Brothers Sports Discovery has been trying to get out of the Root Sports Network business for a while. And this is significant, especially in the Seattle area, because the Mariners own 60% of Root Sports in Seattle, I believe, or like the West Coast side of things. And Warner Brothers Sports Media owns about 40%. So this is a huge deal in terms of the amount of money that's been going on and around. We know that, and just a little bit of context, we know that the Amazons and the Apple TVs and the NBCs and all these other sports networks are trying to kind of get into the sports network market. I think that this is a very expensive situation, as you can clearly see. By the way, that, they're right now, I believe that the current company is $8 billion in debt. And so that's a lot of money to catch up on. And so it's one of those interesting things where I think we're going to start to see a little bit of the decline in sports media, especially local sports media network coverages. And so, Pete, I know I said a mouthful. I know this was a lot to talk about. But what is your opinion about this whole situation as it pertains to the Root Sports Network deal just completely going kaput? And now it seems like it might be the end of, it looks like the current end of Root Sports Network as we currently know it.
I mean, I can't lie. I'm pretty uneducated as far as this kind of thing is concerned. It's not my area, my forte of expertise, as it were. But I mean, this is what happens to dinosaurs, right? Like they go away. This is so outdated.
Hmm.
Having your teams locked to just your city, and I don't know if anybody is too familiar with like the um, Denver Nuggets. They're not even part of this, right? But like people in Denver can hardly watch that team just based on the way that these local media companies and networks have their rights and stuff like that organized. It makes it so impossible. And I don't know, man. I think that this is going to be a good thing in the long run. Inevitably, this is what all these bigger companies want. I mean, you left out a huge sleeping giant in terms of getting these media rights. That's YouTube. Like YouTube, you saw didn't they get NFL? They got the Red Zone network or
Yeah,
whatever.
I believe so, or something
Um,
like that. Some of that nature.
I think they just have like got the streaming rights to the NFL for the most part. Um, that being said, I like that's where all this is going. I think the
Hmm.
NBA is going to want to have their app become even better. Like I don't know about you, Bernie, but I could speak for myself. There is nothing that bothers me on any streaming platform more than the NBA app, League
Hmm.
Pass. And when you go to watch a game, specifically your favorite team, and it's locked out for whatever reason, it's locked out for regional reasons, or it's locked to this network for the next 24 hours or whatever like that. It's the worst stuff known to
Hmm.
man, and really that does nobody any favors. Like that seals off a huge portion of your potential viewer base, and just makes it a barrier that people are going to not want to get through to see your stuff. So I don't know, man. This seems like a good thing in my opinion. And honestly, what is Warner Brothers? What have they done recently that's been that great media wise? Anyway, like I think they've been pretty terrible for a minute now. So um, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. I've long bemoaned regional sports coverage. I think it's the worst thing on planet Earth. It made sense in the '90s, maybe even in the early 2000s. It made sense. Nowadays with the internet, it's beyond logic. Like people watch teams and root for their home team from all around the world. People live everywhere nowadays. It's
Hmm.
just not the same as it used to be. So this is a good thing. Hopefully it means these fans of these teams can watch their home team more often. That's what I'm hoping for at least. We'll see. Maybe it gets worse. Maybe some even more strict organization or company gets a hold of the rights. But I just don't think that's going to be the case, realistically. It's just going
Yeah.
to get opened up more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting situation to kind of continue to monitor, especially as we move into this digital age. We didn't really talk about it the last couple days, and I only mentioned it in my single stream, and that was, of course, the NBA having this new sort of AI generated thing where you can put yourself in the game. And I think that as we continue to look and further along down the line, the days of traditional cable TV, I think it's still there in terms of
No.
how many streaming services, in terms of like, oh, Xfinity has their own streaming service or Disney has their own streaming service. It's all, to me, what happened was is that now it's all chopped up, in my opinion. And probably, if you are a fan or you love a certain thing in media, maybe you'll just pay for one of those things. But knowing some families, they're gonna want everything, and to me, it's a continuously revolving door, as it
Yeah.
pertains to just media in general. One day this TV show is on this network, and then all of a sudden now it's on this network, and you have to like switch subscribing stuff, and one day it's
Yeah,
on Paramount, the next day it's on HBO Max, and it
well, and
continues to be a revolving door, in my opinion. But what were we gonna say?
I was gonna say that's the thing. I mean, like in general, like, and this goes beyond just sports, streaming and stuff like that. I think all streaming. I think we're seeing like the return of cable. Like, I'm not saying we're gonna go back to cable, but more like bundles and packages like that, right? Where you pay for
Mm-hmm.
this one service that's $69.99 for the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get 8 of these streaming networks all conglomerated together. We're going back to cable. It's just instead of having a cable box where you pay for a subscription for all the channels, you
Yeah.
pay for a channel that is the same equivalent of that, but in the 2020s, right? Like that's literally where we're going. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to pay 9 different subscription services. And really, it was a bad model even from the beginning. And I think that's what these sports companies are realizing. Like, let's let one company, or maybe even two, get the rights to all of our games and then put it on a platform where you can go watch any of the games if
Mhm.
you pay for this service. Like, to me, is that not what League Pass is supposed to be? Like, I feel like that's what it's advertised as. However, in the way that everything is broken up and split up now, it's just not, it's really not that. Like, there's so often you go on there, you pay the full fee for the whole league's worth of
Mhm.
games. You might be able to watch like 70% of the games when they're on at any given time due to, local restrictions, or they're on TNT tonight. You have to wait for those games to be over, or ESPN has the rights for it's awful, man. I'm so excited. Hopefully it ends as soon as possible, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting because this was also an area, as you guys can see here in this part of it. It talked about the Golden Knights in particular had TV rights back in 2017, and it's a deal believed to be worth about 13 million per year. So, I think that's another thing that we also have to think and consider. I mean, the reason why these companies are in so much debt is
Yeah.
because of all the TV deals, and they can't compete with the ESPNs or the NBCs or any of these sports networks that
Mm-hmm.
have billions of dollars and can literally throw money here and there just to acquire these TV rights. And that's going to be a very interesting situation for me moving forward, because every year you hear about the TV deals getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, when is it going to be stagnant? When are you going to get to a point where it can no longer get so big and that now it's kind of plateaued a little bit?
I mean,
I know that we're continuously, money continuously is increasing in sports. There's so many different avenues. Clearly, a channel like this is another avenue as well. Two guys wanted to talk about sports. Do I want to?
YouTube. We'll
Yeah,
commentate, YouTube. Let us know. It'll
yeah,
be cheap.
yeah. Super cheap. We'll work for free hoagie sandwiches. Not really.
Take them.
No.
No, we'll be way cheaper than most of the alternatives. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I just think, to me, like, ESPN is increasingly selling off most of its kind of other stuff to facilitate the funds to pay for these sports leagues. Because one thing that you guys will notice, and really what you guys can think about, most of the time people that get cable or any of these type of sports is the only live thing that people are willing to pay for. Like, there's no
Yeah.
longer like a TV show like there was back in the days, like, not to age myself, but and I didn't really watch it that much, or even until I was way older. But a show like Friends, a show like How I Met Your, like, those shows used to be like every week you had to tune into CBS to watch that show, or
I
NBC
mean,
to
the
watch that show.
The
Nowadays
Last of
it's
Us might have something to say about that.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like Last of Us,
No, I know.
it's like you had to buy the cable package to watch it. Where
Sure.
now it's like, oh, I can just give you the first 4 episodes and you'll be happy, and then you'll have to wait a couple more months. It just
Yeah.
continues to be this whole situation where it's no longer people are paying cable to watch those type of shows. Now they're paying cable
Yeah.
to watch just sports, and I think, and maybe the news, and how the news is these days. Um, and so
Unwatchable.
to me, what I clearly can tell by this is that I think at the end of the day, the little uh like mom and pop media rights and media companies are gonna go by the wayside, and eventually it's just gonna be owned by ESPN and McDisney.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Like, that's unfortunate, but I don't know. Nothing lasts forever, right? And maybe
Yeah.
that's just a matter of right now. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, to
Yeah.
me, that seems like what it is. It's like a correction on the market. We have these companies are super top heavy, but like you just said, like there is going to come a time where you don't want to pay $800 million per season for the NBA rights. Like, you won't make that much return in revenue, right? We might even be there already. Like, if you look at the way that All-Star game went, just rating wise, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but I mean, we didn't even really talk about it in our last stream, but
Mm-hmm.
like, one of the things, and I've heard this as a criticism, I've heard it as compliment, it's somewhere in between, is the way that the NBA proliferates the highlights of these games nowadays. Like, you can go on YouTube and watch a 12-minute supercut of any game, get the full picture for the most part. It's better than looking at the box score.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who feel completely satisfied. I got to watch my basketball game tonight. I
Yeah.
watched the 12-minute cut. That's usually good enough for a lot of people. I would say, excuse me, jeez, I just lost my brain. Especially young people, like in this TikTok generation, that's a perfect amount of content for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
However, that doesn't equal money for people. Like, those are YouTube videos. You can watch those free. You can basically, there's nothing you have to do as far as any payment, as far as the customer side of things, and there's no expectation of further purchase afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just get to see it with no, financial
Mm-hmm.
output for it. So
Yeah.
that is, I don't know, man. Like, that gets a lot of eyes on the product, but it doesn't equate to a lot of good business for the company either. So there's somewhere in there where they need to turn these extra viewers. Because I don't know about you, Bernie. What would you say? Like, we've been basketball fans our whole lives, right? It certainly feels like people watch the NBA more than they ever have. However, it also feels like people know less about it, and I don't know how to put it. Like, do you kind of understand what I'm saying? Like,
I
it
get you.
seems like a base engagement level is higher, but the deeper dive into, like, investing your money into the product and caring about it, like, financially, it's not as strong as it used to be. Like, I don't see a lot of people walking around with, like, I don't know, maybe I'm talking crazy, but there's going to come a day where it is not as lucrative for one or two companies to spend all of their money on these rights, and we'll see
Mm-hmm.
if it turns into back into what it is now, or what we're coming out of now, which is these smaller companies. Like, the last thing I'll say for this, I think it's kind of interesting. I think the Trailblazers are going to be the most interesting team in this whole ordeal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my logic here is they are essentially the Pacific Northwest's basketball team. Like, we have local restrictions in Seattle for them because of the Root Network, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the NBA truly has plans to expand into Seattle and Vegas, but specifically Seattle, Portland would no longer be our local team. We would have, the Sonics, or whatever the name ends up being for the team.
Yeah.
Do you maybe they're going to go to a whole new network? Maybe this is part of the plan of, like, we need to just get out of these local deals so nobody's contractually, because they can't extend a contract now with Root Network for like 4 or 5 years. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's going to be the interesting part of it because I think before the Sonics used to be on the Root Sports Network as well,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff, and so
Well,
it,
Portland wasn't on it back then, were they?
I think they were. It was just like
Oh, really?
yeah, it was like
Okay.
more. I
It is
mean,
different now, though. Maybe it's just too much money nowadays to have them both.
yeah, I mean this is going to be the thing that I think a lot of us are kind of realizing as we move more towards this sort of like pay per view in a sense
Yeah.
pay per view model that's going to be happening now, which is yeah you can pay I think currently it's $100 for NBA League Pass at the beginning of the year. I know it's $50 now, but at the beginning of the year it was $100.
That's one team, right? Isn't one team $100? It's
I
like
think
130 for all teams, 140 for all teams.
let me double check that. But while I'm checking that, I think it's going to become a situation where now, things like the pay-per-views from the UFC and things like that, I could potentially see them saying, "Hey, let's just do this pay-per-view model. Hey, pay $2 a game to watch your favorite team play." Um,
Or like add that into the model of, like, let's just use YouTube as an example, right? Let's say YouTube is like all in on sports. They buy the rights for the NBA. You could pay the upfront here is the fee for one team, here's the fee for all teams, right? And then they have an option. I don't know if you remember this, Bernie. It wasn't live. I don't remember it being live, but back in like the early 2010s, it's probably still there too. You could like pay $2.99 for a game immediately after it was over and get the recording of the game. Do you remember that? You could buy it on like iTunes and stuff like that. I used to buy games and watch it like that sometimes if I missed it.
I remember that.
Like I could see that being a thing. And so it isn't necessarily pay-per-view in the sense that you're paying like like they're never going to convince somebody to pay $60 for an NBA game. I just don't think that's a thing. But let's say it's $1.99 and you get access to this game and all its extra features per night.
Yeah.
You can pay that for one game. I don't know. That seems like not a terrible business model. And there's times where, like, if I'm turning on a Knicks game and I see the TNT thing has it locked until 9:30 and it's 4:30 in the afternoon, I'd probably consider paying the $1.99 just to watch it right then. Like, I probably would do it. So maybe that's just me being an extra. Like, I watch every game and I watch tons of other teams most nights too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me, but I think there'd be a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very interesting situation to continue to follow up. And as we continue to move towards this new, 2020s, we have no idea where the media network is going to go, because for the last 20 years, it's kind of seemed like it stayed the same in some sense. And so I think the companies are starting to realize that, and they're starting to think, like, how can we, one, generate more revenue because we have to keep paying these astronomical fees, and two, how do we make the viewer stay on the channel longer? Like you said, Pete, like, it's a perfect example of generations changing day, year by year. You got Generation Z, who's this TikTok generation, the generation that, likes 30 seconds to maybe 2 to 3 minute clips, and then they're done.
Yeah.
And so, I think that this AI thing that the NBA is trying out is a potential one that they're looking into. I'm sure that they're thinking, okay, let's just AI people into the game so they can feel like they're part of it. And then they spend minutes and a lot of minutes, like, in the app doing that thing, which then might turn into hours. And then eventually they could be like, okay, I want to see how I play like the whole game. and it just becomes like this whole, let's see how we can generate more revenue. How do we generate more viewership? How do we generate more time retention watching the sport?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I alluded to it in our little chat when we set this up in our pre-show production. I guess you want to call it some pre-production. There's the AI that the NBA announced, which is, you basically AI put your head on a player's body and you're in the game, right?
Yeah.
I will definitely try that when it comes out. I like to try all new stuff like that. If it worked, it'd be incredible. I mean, that would get a ton of people into the NBA, I think. Maybe if it's just for short spurts, I don't know. I do think there would be a lot of people who would try it. I told you in our chat, though, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until they announce AI-generated commentary. Wait until they announce AI-generated games. I mean, think of that, Bernie. That's going to be one of the things. In the beginning, it will seem like a gimmick because it will be like 2K. You're watching a 2K game. But it won't take long for it to be. I do want to see what LeBron and MJ on a team would look like in a real game. And then the AI generation it'll happen and you'll be able to watch it. Will it be exactly like what it would be in real life? Probably not, but I bet it'll be a lot closer than actual 2K in time, right? So that kind of stuff is where a lot of these companies are going to hope to make their money, because the AI part of it will be maybe not a one-time fee for them, but it will be a lot cheaper than paying huge departments of people to do that for you, right? Yeah. So then they can make those changes to their business model, have people pay out. Like, let's say, you can't tell me, Bernie, let's say it's $9.99 add-on to your League Pass subscription. It gives you the like an extra option to change who your commentator is. And you basically have like a list of 50 AI voice, actors that you can put in as your commentator.
Yeah.
I think there'd be a ton of people who would pay for that. I said Vin Diesel as an example. Like, why not? I mean, it would be so stupid, but you definitely, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you got The Rock. Let's say they all just say, this season I'm gonna, sell my voice rights to this AI for the
Mm-hmm.
NBA. There'd be people who would pay for that. And I bet you there's
Yeah.
gonna be some of these leagues that start trying that stuff out. If they're already trying out AI, put your head on a player, that's just the start. It's gonna keep coming fast and furious. That was not a Vin Diesel joke, I promise. I didn't mean to say that. But I'm excited to see it, man. I think not the AI, but the NBA there's a lot of potential to make their product more watchable to everybody. And I think like what they're doing with like Wembenyama is a great example of trying to extend out into these other countries with like a
Yeah.
really hard line of, hey, we see you. We have Wembenyama coming, French people. Pay attention. We care about French
Mm-hmm.
basketball. You know, invest your time and your attention span into our sport across the, ocean, and we'll keep making it easier to watch for you. That's literally where all this is going. Making it into a global sport is I would say that seems like the number one priority of the NBA right now.
Yeah, and you can clearly see it with the way that they're streaming, especially FIBA are streaming these like
Yep.
tournament games, and it's starting to become a bigger deal, and that's something that I really appreciate about the NBA and really just basketball in general. Like I talked about years ago, like 2017, 2018. I was kind of talking a little bit out of my butt just in terms of like, yeah, the NBA will take over the NFL, but I think it could potentially happen. Especially with the expansion of going worldwide and
Yeah.
having these academies and having especially NBA players like Akeem Olajuwon, having camps in Africa, and players that will eventually, Australia, a perfect example. You got like
Yes.
Patty Mills, like
Josh
they'll
Giddey, Ben Simmons, yeah,
yeah,
Dyson Daniels. There's tons of them.
yeah, and
Ingles.
eventually when they get old and retire, they'll go back to those places and say like and start camps there, and then eventually it'll be big. And I think that's the way that the NBA should expand and really do the things that they need to do in terms of like getting TV rights and things like that, because everyone wants to see the next person coming up. That's why, like you said, that's why they're showing the Victor Wembanyama. Uh, I would say hype. Like they're really
Yep.
buying into it. They're like showing games that they normally wouldn't. And then eventually, I think that they're trying to do that while also as well trying to figure out how to get more people interested. And I think they're trying different ideas. And again, I'm not the biggest proponent of the AI stuff. I might be one of few
Why is that?
people.
No, 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 no. I think I'm one of few that's way in on it. I honestly think more people are like you, Bernie. I think more people are much more hesitant to uh, adopting it as a potential like. Because really, it's one of the things I think that I don't want to get too deep on this. This is a topic for a very different podcast than this one, but people, I think, generally speaking, are very hesitant to change in general, and I don't know if it's general, like a subconscious level of understanding, but I think most people understand that this AI thing is going to change a lot of things about all of our
Yeah.
lives. Like most of our lives in like, I don't know, man. I'm very into this type of stuff. I don't
Hmm.
even think people really comprehend how much bigger it's going to be than like smartphones were. Like smartphones is a huge change to the way humans live, but AI is really going to like drastically change a lot of things. And I do think there's a lot of hesitance to see the way we all live change that
Hmm.
quickly before our eyes. And I think when it comes to media, people become especially hesitant. Like, don't change this thing I like. It's been the way it is for a long time, and I'd prefer it to stay that way. I'm just of the opinion that why would you not want something that can make everything better and optimize it and make it easier for people to focus their attention on more important stuff? Um, I don't know. To me, that makes a lot of sense, but we'll see how it goes. It seems like the NBA wants to be on the forefront of it, though, so I'm excited to see what their plans are.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I think this is going to be a very fun and interesting situation to continue to monitor and continue to look at. So, people in the comment section, let us know in the comment section down below. Are you guys a big fan of the AI generated stuff that the NBA is going down? Are you hesitant? And also, what do you guys think about this media TV deal that we just spent? 20 minutes talking about. Do you guys agree or disagree with the way that sports media should operate? Do you think that there should be little markets? Should there be just the big markets covering it? We'd love to know your guys' comments and opinions in the comments section down below. So please feel free to chat about it and let us know in the live chat or the comment section when this is a separate video. All right, Pete, I think it's time to talk about contenders and pretenders, because this is going to be one of our bigger subjects. And so why don't we start off kind of talking about this whole what we're going to talk about here. So with about 20 games left remaining in the season, we thought it would be a great idea to kind of look over this NBA season and really talk about who are the biggest pretenders, who are the biggest contenders in each conference. And we're probably going to go all the way to about the 10 seed. And if teams are contenders and pretenders, some teams will go over, some teams will kind of spend a little more detail on. So why don't we start off in the East, Pete? Let's start off in the East, and let's go to number 10, specifically talking about the Washington Wizards. Are they contenders or are they pretenders? I think this one's clear.
They're absolutely pretenders. That team is one of the most confusing squads in the entire NBA, as far as I'm concerned. I don't really understand what their plan is. I don't think they have a plan. They're the Wizards, after all. They don't usually seem to have a very concrete plan in mind. But I don't know, man. They don't seem to know where they're going or what the plan is as far as who their guys are, more than anything. And I'll use my word. I always love to use it on this channel. What's the timeline for these dudes? You have Bradley Beal is almost 30, right? I think he might be 29 or 28. Maybe I'm overstating how old he is. But, I just got a close look at them the other night, 2 days ago. The Knicks played the Wizards. And they're... I don't know. That Bradley Beal contract, is that the worst contract in the NBA, Bernie?
It's definitely up there. I saw, to me, like the Otto Porter Jr. contract will always be the worst one to me in NBA history.
Oh, no. I mean currently, though.
Oh, currently?
I would say it's got to be pretty close to the worst.
It's up there just because there's no plan with this team. Like we talked about it.
There's also... They can't really do anything with him. I mean, if they trade him, he's not really worth that much because his contract offsets him being worth anything in general, right? Like that's why he was so much in the discussion of what the Lakers were doing, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that the Lakers could even get a guy who almost led the league in scoring, a couple seasons ago, just because his contract is so bad, shows how organizationally flawed they are. So, yeah, I don't like it. I really think they should have traded Kuzma at the deadline. Even though Kuzma's solid, he's really improved a lot of his game.
Yeah.
They should have just gotten assets, man. They need anything they can get. I would have traded most of the things on my team if I were them. Tried to get Porzingis out of there. See if somebody like the Warriors wants to take Porzingis on. Anything to get rid of that Beal contract. Yeah, they're terrible. And that Johnny Davis 10th overall pick really has to hurt right now too, because he is. I mean, is he even like in the G League anymore? Let me check. Let me look that up. What are your thoughts on the Wizards?
I mean, the Wizards are the Wizards. I've talked about them ad nauseum this season. They're the same team that they were at the beginning of the year, and they're the same team that they were at currently right now. Very mediocre, no plan in place, and it's the reason why right now they're 28-31. Like, they have all these players. They got rid of Rui. They decided that Rui was not part of their future, and they're kind of going with this Kisper, Johnny Davis, Bradley Beal, Kuzma lineup that they've decided. And who's the other guy they got? Avasia, Danny Avasia. Like, that's who they think is going to be.
I do like Danny.
And that's who they think that their future is going to be. But they just don't. They seem to like invest in the guys that are similar in position, similar in size. And I just don't know if I can consider them contenders at all. Sean, I know you're making the joke here about Corey Kispert. I think he's a good player, and I think he's solid. But without a real plan, he's just a mediocre player on a really mediocre team. Yeah, Kispert.
He's the next Kevin Huerter. And I hate to just say 3-point shooting white guy. He's just going to go to another team in like 2 seasons and have
ball out. Ball out.
Yeah, he's going to be way better, used much smarter. It's just that's that seems to be what what happens with some of these guys, and it really like that's. I don't know. I've already seen more from Rui, I feel, with the Lakers than I saw any time with the Wiz, and I don't
Yeah.
even like him still that much now. But
Yeah.
even then, like I already feel like he's shown more stuff. So yeah, the Wizards are a disaster. It does look like Johnny Davis is playing in the G League. He missed a bunch of games.
Yeah.
Um,
He's definitely not the
not
pick
a
that they should have taken.
not a 10, that is for certain. Thank God the Knicks didn't take him because they
Yeah.
kind of wanted to.
All right, let's kind of group these three teams just because I think we all know what they are. The Heat, Hawks, Toronto. They're all pretenders, right?
Hawks certainly, Raptors definitely. The Heat, I always, dude, I have to pause. They're like in the middle somewhere for me. They're really one of the probably 4 toughest teams in the NBA to gauge what they are. And the primary reason I say that is their coach. Like to me, you have a coach that's the level of Eric Spoelstra, and you see what he's able to get out of these guys year in and year out, turn these ugly situations into, genuinely productive years where they make it to an Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I just can't count that out. I'm a big coaching guy, That's for me, that's a huge part of any sport, let alone the NBA, is having a guy that's going to keep your dudes grounded. And between him and Jimmy in the playoffs, you can't count them out, man. You can't count them out. I don't think they have the juice. I didn't think they had it the last few years. I've honestly thought they were overrated for half a decade now. However, it doesn't mean they can't just go in and sneak out of a series with a crazy win. They've done it a few years in a row. So I think they're pretenders. They're a better they're closer to contender than those other two, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my issue with them specifically is the fact that right now they're on a 4-game losing streak. It seems like ever since they re-signed Bam Adebayo to a big contract extension, he hasn't really lived up to what I think he really should be playing at. And Jimmy Butler is also underperforming, in my opinion, as well. And really the shooters. Like, Duncan Robinson has been MIA. Strauss has been MIA. Like, all these guys that they've kind of signed as their shooters have been MIA and on a milk carton right now. I think we should be looking at their agents and charging them for robbery, because I mean it's crazy how much money those guys are getting paid to miss shots. Like, I know that shooting is very streaky and it's just like golf and these other sports where it's like very, very like you have to be very direct, you have to really and aiming and things like that on the move. Like, there's a lot of things that requires a lot of focus and attention, and right now they're not doing it for the Miami Heat, and they're currently in the 7th place, going to be in the playing game with the way that they're playing right now. And so 4-game losing streak, definitely not it for Miami. And so for me, they're one of the bigger pretenders out there.
Yeah. I can't really disagree too much. Like, they have a lot of weak spots on that team. I mean, they've had Caleb Martin playing their power forward literally for half the season. I mean, he's really like a 2. Their team is definitely not constructed anywhere near as well as it has been in the past, I would say. I think the Kevin Love signing is kind of interesting for them. I think it's going to make a huge difference. Not particularly, but that is the kind of guy that would go somewhere like, Miami and end up having like a weird little resurgence for a year and a half. I could really see it with him. And I think he played his first game there last night, right? Or 2 nights ago?
Yeah.
It went okay, right?
He was all right. I think there was some solid things, but again, the Miami Heat struggles and woes are more than just those guys. Like the guys that they've signed big money to are not performing the way that they need to, and it's really cost them a lot of games. And so, let us know in the comment section down below what you guys make of the Miami Heat moving forward. Yeah. All right, Pete, let's kind of combine these two because I feel like they're brothers from another mother, and that is, of course, the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knickerbockers.
That's so rude what you just said. I'm truly offended by that.
What, do you think the ugly stepbrother, the stepchild?
I mean, that's still generous for the Brooklyn Nets.
They
want to send him back is really what it boils down to. Want to unadopt.
let's start out with the Nets. Are they contenders or are they pretenders? And I think
They're
there's only
certainly
one answer.
they're certainly not contenders. They actually are better than people think they are. Like I
Mhm.
actually weirdly kind of like their team not more than I did with Kevin Durant and Kyrie. I'm not saying like I think they're better than that. Obviously, they were
Right.
contenders with those guys. I do like them more as a team. Like I like a lot of their guys. Their defense is definitely better. You still have guys who can give you 40, Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas. You got
Mhm.
all sorts of guys on their team that can still give you buckets. And I will say for the Nets, I was right about a lot of things for that team. I called a lot of it from the very beginning. The one I was so wrong about is Nick Claxton. I was genuinely not, I did not think Nick Claxton was good for a long time. And he proved me wrong. I think Nick Claxton's like legitimately one of the most versatile defenders in the entire NBA. I'm a big Claxton guy. I'm glad they kept a hold of him.
Mhm.
He's still young and really talented. So I think they're solid. I really like Jock Vaughn a lot too
Yeah,
as a coach. I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him as far as,
I agree.
keeping the team together through pretty turbulent times is impressive stuff as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, they're certainly not contenders.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Contenders. Or sorry, pretenders. Pretenders. Blah. Pretenders
They
for the Nets. I mean, they
pretenders.
don't have a superstar. Ben Simmons is out again. I mean, there's no way to build chemistry together when you can't when a lot of your guys just can't be on the court due to
Yeah.
injuries. But let's move on to the Knicks. I think the Knicks. I know there's a lot of optimism and hope, and I know that right
Oh,
now they're playing out of their gourd right now.
what are you
But
about to say, Bernie?
I think that they are pretenders because I think as soon as the clock strikes midnight, we know what Julius Randle turns into. We know what these players become. And so
Somebody hasn't been watching.
I've been watching. I mean, I like what they're doing. They've done some nice things, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not a huge believer in the Knicks, contending for a championship
All right,
coming up.
let me preface this by saying I am not delusional enough at this point in my life to truly believe this team is going to win the championship. Okay, I need to make that very very clear to everyone involved. Knicks fans can be very very delusional. It's a well known fact. Okay. However, here's what I'm going to say. Let me try and persuade you to get on this team's bandwagon just a
Okay.
little bit, Bernie.
Okay.
I'm you know me, I'm very much into the body language, the chemistry of basketball. That's one of the things I look at. I would say it's one of my fortes personally in terms of watching basketball. There are not many teams in the NBA right now that have a better vibe than the Knicks do. They really like each other. They seem very excited to play with one another, and they genuinely kind of sell out for one another in a positive way. They're
Hmm.
always doing things that are benefiting the other guys on their team, even if it would seem like it would maybe hurt their status or like give you a good example is like lately RJ has been playing early fourth quarter and not playing too much down the stretch, right? Most players RJ's age would not take it as well as he has, in my opinion, but is taking it well, and it actually really suits the team for him to come off the bench in those later minutes as far as the defense is concerned. Now that we have Josh Hart, right? Um, and Randall, I mean, Randall has played more confident. He is one of the ultimate like his game is completely
Hmm.
dependent on his confidence level. He has been playing at a level that I've actually never seen him play. Even in his All NBA second team season a couple years ago, he's better right now than he was at any stretch in that season. He's been actually
Hmm.
incredible. It's all mentality, and I think that's one of the things that's always underrated about a lot of these teams. I would say the same thing for the Heat at different stretches, not right now, at
Hmm.
different stretches. Like their collective bring it together when it matters is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I think the Knicks have one of the better chemistries of really any team in the league. And I just have to bring up this one little piece of news that keeps coming around. I don't know if you know what I'm going to talk about. This Derrick
Derrick
Rose
Rose. Yep.
buyout.
Yep. To the Suns.
That's not
I heard.
that is not going to happen. Like I have to just tell everybody right now watching, believe me or not, it won't happen. I don't know why it keeps getting reported. If anybody's reporting it, it's the Suns are trying to leak that out there so it happens. Did you see any of what happened last night with the Knicks? They blew out the Pelicans.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the game a
And
little bit. Didn't really watch
uh,
too much.
we were absolutely blowing the Pelicans out the whole game. And the MSG started cheering really loud for Derrick Rose. They sent him out on the court. Played for the last few minutes.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. But that's one of the things that I like the most about the team is that you have guys like D Rose, who's not even getting minutes, but he's so bought in as far as being like a player coach and just supporting the team. Here's my last thought. I think they can give teams in the early rounds a legitimate run for their money. And a lot of that has to do with their defense. Is like Mitchell Robinson is a huge force on defense at this point in his career. He's cut down the fouls. He can play incredible interior defense, but he also has the length where he can get out there and almost block three-pointers sometimes. It's really impressive stuff. And then you have Josh Hart, who's just everywhere on the court. Quickly has been a better defender than he's been in his whole career. I think they could really give somebody a run for their money. However, once you get to those later rounds, you just don't have the scoring to keep up with a team like Boston. They don't have the scoring to keep up with Milwaukee, Philly. They could beat them in a one-on-one game, but that's not what the playoffs is. So, yeah, they're not contenders, but they're definitely not pretenders. And that is cynical Nick and that I am is genuinely like I believe now.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of the situation that I kind of see with the Knicks. You know, I think they'll do really well in the first round. I think they could, you know, depending on the circumstance, because Philadelphia chokes every year, they could potentially beat Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And you know, whatever situation happens there, but they need to continue winning so they can avoid this playing game. And so, if I had to pick between the two, pretenders and contenders, I think I would pick contenders for the Knicks versus the Nets. I would have them as pretenders. And let's move on to the top four. You know, we have Cleveland, we have Philly, we have Bucks, and we have Celtics. Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a team that has been kind of, at times, been the team that I think both you and I have raved about, have talked about. And then there's times where the Cleveland Cavaliers are just a team that I don't even recognize. And it just might be to the fact that they're a young team. They're inexperienced in these moments. I know Mitchell has some experience, but for the rest of the guys that are on there, like Garland, like Evan Mobley, even Jared Allen to some extent, like those guys are super young. And I think that because of their immaturity, not for any reason of, you know, outside things, it's just they need more seasoning. They need more experience in playing, especially playoff basketball and playing together. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we talked about the beginning of the year. I had them as like a sneaky, like Eastern Conference Finals type of team. Now I'm not so sure, just because I think the way that the Cleveland Cavaliers have been playing these last couple of games, you know, they need to start doing a better job. And it's not, again, they need to continue just playing with each other. And I think next year could potentially be a year where they pop off. But like looking at their road record, like they're not going to be able to win games in the playoffs if their road record is 13-18. With the inconsistencies there, and on a 3-game losing streak at the current moment, I think the Cavaliers are pretenders at this current moment.
Boy, I will disagree with you on this one. I do think they're still contenders. I do still think they have the top end talent to get it done. Is this necessarily their season? I don't think so. I do think they're still pretty young. They still have some room to go. And one of the things for them too is like it's not too different than the Celtics, but the difference with the Celtics is that they've played generally together much longer and more than the Cavs have. Cavs always have somebody that's hurt this season. Like that doesn't help, especially when you're a young team that just got kind of put together in the last year or two. You got to get that experience on the court together. So I'm excited to see them get some playoff minutes and see what it looks like. But I truly do think like he can defend any team with their versatility. He can score with any team. I still believe in JB Bickerstaff. I've heard some negativity around him as of late. He does have some pretty strange rotations at times. Not always the best, you know. They really messed up by not upgrading their 3 spot. Like to me, That's the biggest flaw for the team since the minute the season started, and it will remain that way throughout the rest of this season. They don't have a true three who can step in there and give them good minutes. And I honestly think a couple of the people that get minutes for them just should not get minutes. I'm very much not a Karis LeVert guy at this point. I don't think he really adds hardly anything to the team. And I'll say too, we talked about him with the Heat. I don't understand the Kevin Love. Like, why did you hold on to him? Why didn't you try and send him somewhere for like a protected first or some second or anything in return for him rather than just wait and then buy him out? I don't really get that. They could have used him. He was a solid like bench guy for them, and it seemed like he was happy to be that until all of a sudden he was not. So that is not a great sign. Need to get that 3 spot better, but maybe I think this is one of those years. Like, I'll give you a good example, Bernie. I think that this is not that dissimilar to like the 2018 Celtics when they went to the ECF and Tatum and Brown got that experience there playing against LeBron. Like, to me, if they made it that far, the Cavs, that would be amazing. But just go as far as you can, get as much experience, as many minutes in those clutch moments as you can, and come back next year with a better 3 and, the more, hopefully better health is really what it comes down to, so you can keep your guys on the court. And my guy Mobley, we just need to let him start, scoring a little bit more. That's really what it comes down to. Better 3, get Mobley involved on offense more.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big thing that the Cavaliers need. They just need that experience, that seasoning. But that's not going to happen until a year from now. That's the thing that sucks about a team like the Cavaliers, is that they just need a little bit more of that. Let's move on to Philly. The 76ers, they obviously played last night. They lost against the Boston Celtics. But there is still a lot of stuff that you have to like about this team. I think that they are contenders in my book. The only issue with them is that they are so inconsistent in the playoffs, and I hate to keep bringing it up because it's a frustrating point, but they continue to lose and Joel Embiid to injuries during the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part about them, is that they're a really good team. They're solid. They have good pieces, but Joel Embiid, when the clock strikes 12, he always gets hurt in some way or another. And that's the frustrating part about it, because they can't, the one time that they were healthy was that series against the Raptors when that Kawhi shot went in. Like, that was the last time that I saw like a fully healthy 76ers team.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think they're legit contenders. I would put them in my top 6 contenders in the NBA, top 5 borderline. Is it really the Embiid injury is what holds you back the most for them?
Yeah, because
possible
every
injury.
time, I just remember last year he got hurt, he wasn't able to play, and they just got they got beat. And so like that to me is why, like, I always cause for pause with this Philadelphia 76ers, because there's always an injury to Embiid that derails their season. Like, whether it's like a thumb injury, whether it's like a foot injury, like there's always something that takes the team from like a contending team that could potentially be in the Eastern Conference Finals and winning games to not being able to play.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I definitely think they're contenders. My biggest problem with them is, what I'm about to say, it's Doc Rivers. I mean, honestly, I'm so anti Doc Rivers, it's not even funny. I think I just don't understand how you keep him after all these years thinking it's going to change. Like, he's just not creative enough in the moments when it matters the most. Like, he doesn't change his rotations. He has bad choices in matchup selection as far as putting people in different spots. One thing I will say for them is I do feel like a lot of their guys have stepped up in a big way lately, in ways that people aren't giving them enough credit. I feel like James Harden has been as close to Houston Harden as he's been since he left Houston.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's been very, very, very good lately. Genuinely shocked he didn't make the All-Star team. I really thought he should have. However, other person on their team, I don't think he gets any credit, Bernie, is Tobias Harris. Did you know, Bernie? I'm going to give you a fun stat right now. All right.
Stat of the week.
Tobias Harris, of the 3 players who have guarded like the NBA's top scoring players, like the top 10 scorers, I think
Mm-hmm.
Tobias Harris, the last time I looked, players with over 400 possessions guarding the top scorers in the NBA, he ranks third.
Wow.
Third in defensive rating against those guys. That's genuinely impressive for anybody. Tobias Harris is not known for his defense. It
Yeah.
just shows, man. To me, that just shows how bought in these dudes seem to be.
Mm-hmm.
I really like their offseason. I'm pretty sure if I don't, I'm gonna have to look this up before our next stream, but I need to write down what our preseason predictions were so we can do a preseason prediction dismantling of what we thought coming into the season. I'm pretty sure I had them as the number one regular season team in the East.
I think you did.
I don't think they're going to be that still. Still think the Celtics or the Bucks. I said the Bucks last stream. I still think the Bucks and the Celtics are going to be pretty close right there.
Yeah.
But I do think it's impressive to see how much these guys have stepped up and how their offseason signings have panned out. Like PJ Tucker's almost 40, but just the vibe that he adds to the team is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. What's his name? DeAnthony Melton. It's huge for them to have those guys out there.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely have a lot of good guys on this team. I think one player that's kind of cooled down a little bit is Maxey. I think he's just cooled down just a little bit. And they just he needs to find his mojo back because he used to be.
Yeah, I think that's honestly good for their team, though. For him to be like a bench guy for them.
Yeah.
Get those minutes on the bench where he can just kind of cook second teams. I think that works for them because him and Harden, I never felt like they really meshed very well.
Yeah.
The time that I saw, at least, I thought they kind of was very your turn, my turn when the two of them were out there together.
Exactly. Sean, we'll talk about them next week, so you'll have your you can have your celebration or your festival next week. But let's move on.
I didn't laugh about the Kings. I thought I liked them. Well, I'm gonna have to look at it. I'm gonna get a hold of all our preseason predictions before our next stream.
Yeah. Let's go to number 2, the Milwaukee Bucks. They continuously win games. They're on a 13-game win streak. I think the longest in the NBA currently. Yep. If I'm not mistaken, besides the losing streak of the San Antonio Spurs, they are at 16. But in terms of win streaks, they have the longest one out of all the teams. Again, a team that continuously wins games, continuously has shown in multiple situations that they are one of the best teams in the NBA. Again, I think it's going to be, like you said, a really tight race between the Celtics and the Bucks for first place, and even just the conference finals if both those teams make it to that spot. This, to me, is going to be a very interesting situation that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be put in because, they got in some really good pieces. I like the Bogdanovich pickup. Was it the Bogdanovich or was it? No, sorry, Ingles. Excuse me, Ingles. I love the Ingles pickup.
It'd be way better if it was Bogdanovich.
I know. If it was Bogdanovich, it'd be way better. And, I wish he didn't sign that contract extension with the Pistons, but you got to make your money.
I guess so.
But yeah, I'm just not a huge, I think the Milwaukee Bucks are still missing a piece that I think could take them over the hump. I think Giannis is obviously the great equalizer to anything just because he's both offensive and defensive player. And they've clearly shown, as you can see by the stats here, that in home games, they're basically unbeatable. In road games, they have a very good record. And really, to me, the one that matters a lot is the overtime record. They're 3-1. So most of the times they're winning games compared to the Celtics, who continuously find themselves at this 4-5 spot in overtime games. But what can't be knocked about the Bucks is the fact that they have one of the best players in the world playing on their team, and I think that's the reason why they will always be contenders no matter what.
I mean, to me, this is the closest equivalent to LeBron in the early 2000s or the 2000s into the early 2010s. Like, you're guaranteed a trip basically to the Eastern Conference Finals if Giannis is healthy. And what happens from there is kind of dependent upon circumstance. But, yeah, like I said, I think this is the best team in the NBA personally. I know it's easy to say when they're on a 13-game winning streak, but I would have said it even, a few games into it. Even before then, I was pretty high on the Bucks. And a lot of that, for me, is as simple as this. Giannis is best player on planet Earth, in my opinion. He is the best all-around player in basketball with a bullet. Like, to me, there's nobody that gets close to him on defense. There's very, very few people that are close to him on offense or better than him. There's a couple, I would say, that are probably better all-around offensive players, but all around, there's nobody in the league. Like you said, that is the great equalizer. When you have somebody who can literally do everything, cover every hole that your team might have, you have a lot of room to work with. And one thing too, Bernie, and this is, I think, probably the most underrated asset of the team dynamic in basketball. It's continuity. Like, continuity is a huge deal for these teams. This squad of Bucks players have played together for years now. That means a lot. It's the same thing with the Celtics. Like, we can just start talking about them too. It's the same thing in the sense that these guys all know exactly what each other are thinking. They know who to count on and where to count on them when it matters in these big moments, and that's a huge deal, man. Like, I've seen a lot more out of Chris Middleton as of late. He hasn't necessarily been close to the guy he used to be still, but he's getting back into form. I think Drew has been just as good. Drew is, to this day, still one of the most underrated players in all of basketball. He probably will never not be underrated, even if they win another championship. Still be underrated. Doesn't matter, though. He gives you exactly what you think he's going to give you. Incredible on-ball defense. He can score in clutch moments if you really need him to, but that's not his game. I think the Jay Crowder signing was huge for them, too. I'm not a big Jay Crowder guy. I've really never understood why people think he's such a huge difference maker. However, when he has to be counted on as little as he will on this team, that's a huge asset to have.
Yeah, exactly. And that to me is why I think the Milwaukee Bucks will be good. And really why I think they'll continuously be contenders. But moving on to the Celtics, I do think that they are contenders. To me, this is the best the Boston Celtics have looked in years. And, I've been touting them as the oven-baked process. And finally, with a few additional ingredients, we have finally gotten that done. And that's without the superstars, of course, of Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, who, again, were added to this team when these guys were young and it didn't work out for them, so they moved on. But this Celtics team is a lot more experienced, a lot more poised, and really I think that this team, really should have won the championship last year, due to a couple just, I think really bad errors on the Celtics' part. To me,
they blew that one.
They blew the NBA championship away from them. But give credit to the Warriors as well. But to be honest, I think the Celtics have the pieces that they need. Again, Malcolm Brogdon brings a different dynamic to this team that I don't think a lot of other people have brought to the Celtics, especially at that guard position, being a facilitator, but also being able to score the rock as a bigger guard. I think that's huge. Marcus Smart playing a little bit smarter. No pun intended with the name. I think just making great plays. I think Tatum still has a little bit of room to grow. Again,
just crazy. He's almost 31 points a game.
Yeah.
9 rebounds. I agree with you, though. He definitely can get better.
Yeah. And it's just, to me, like figuring out where his best spots are on the court so we can feed him in those spots. Again, I just think catching it out on the 3-point line, I still think back to that last possession the Celtics had before Tatum hit the game winner. I think it was just too much like, let's move the ball, too much dancing from Tatum, and then he's going to pull up a three. I think that's old Tatum. That's Tatum from like 2017, 2018. And a Tatum that, again, I remember in the bubble trying to play too much hero ball and ended up costing us a championship, or at least an opportunity to contend for a championship in a time when we should have really won that game, that series, I should say. So, like, to me, I think that's where the Celtics, they will always be contenders, but there's no excuses now for the Celtics. They need to win the championship. They need to dominate, because if it plays out the way it should play out, it'll be the Denver Nuggets or the Warriors are creeping back in, man. I said that they weren't going to make it.
They'll still be a definite contender. We'll talk about them next week, though. They'll definitely still be hanging around.
Yeah, but these teams like the Memphis Grizzlies and the Nuggets, they have to beat those teams. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. We're better than them. And I think we have the more experienced and poised team. And with Mazzulla being a young coach, I think he understands the dynamic and the framework of everything. And I think that hasn't really affected the Celtics as much as a lot of people would say it did.
I mean, I was a huge proponent. What's up?
Frank Ritchie just subscribed. Hey, man, appreciate you subscribing to the channel, man.
Appreciate it, Frank.
or Ricochet.
Come in.
Maybe I'm
What's his
saying
name?
that name wrong. I think you'll see
All
it
right.
on the screen.
The one thing I'll say for the Celtics, one thing I'm going to say for the Celtics, and this is the reason why I give the Bucks the edge, and maybe you can counter this, Bernie. I do think the bigs are kind of a weakness for the Celtics. I don't know if Horford can give you anywhere near what he gave you down the stretch last season. That was honestly a miraculous performance from him in the playoffs. I think it comes down to I'm just not a huge Robert Williams guy, Bernie. Like Time Lord,
Wow.
I just
You're
feel
not a
like
friend of the
he.
Time Lord.
Oh no! Hear me out. I do think he's very, very talented. I think he's a really impactful guy. He's out there. He's not all that dissimilar to somebody like Mitchell Robinson, like we talked about. Like he's always hurt for some reason. When he's out there, he really has like this gravity to him on defense where it seems like he's always generally in the right spot. He's funneling people to the right spots. Problem is, you just can never count on this dude to be there in a game. Like play the game. Like to me, it's a huge deal. Like I don't know. It's very untrustworthy as far as can you rely on this guy for 4 straight playoff series? Would you count on him? Like bet your life on Robert Williams is going to be there for you in the finals if you need him? I don't think you can, really.
I mean, his minutes have to be very limited in these finals playoff series. Like the first round, I believe he should not be playing as much as like 10 to 15 minutes, just because I think his knees obviously can't handle the stress of
He's
the
like
game.
24, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of one of those things. I have to call
25.
I have to call a spade when it comes to the injury stuff. I called out Embiid for it. I've called out Simmons for it. I've called out a lot of guys that have gotten injured throughout the whole time. And so I have to be consistent with it. So to me, it's the same thing with Time Lord. Like you need to be able to, you're injury prone. You need to save his legs. Like you can't be playing him consistent minutes, or I guess you should be playing him consistent minutes, but of the same variety. It should never be like, okay, one game Time Lord's playing like 10 minutes, the next game he's playing like 26 to 32 minutes. Like there needs to be some consistency there. And so for me, and I think the big thing was that we played really well even without Time Lord there. Again,
Honestly, it was borderline better at some points. Like it really wasn't that
there's
crazy.
gonna be times where like Time Lord made a huge impact in some of those Warriors games, and I can't on the top of my head remember which ones that he made a huge impact on, but he did make big impacts in those games, rebounding wise, and especially with the way that the Warriors and their sort of rebounding Draymond Green antics that go on.
Yeah.
I need someone that's going to rebound the ball and not take any of Draymond's crap. And I just think that
that's really it.
And I think that that's something that I want to see more out of Time Lord and really more out of our guys. Again, the end of game stuff, I think it's still a huge problem for us, and I want that to be addressed. Because I think that in order for us to win games, we have to be able to dominate the end of game situations. Again, yesterday was a good example of it was all right. I didn't mind the shot because Tatum hit it, but at the same time, like why don't we?
Of course,
I would rather much like give Tatum like a catch in the middle or something where he's able to just kind of have like more of like that mid range pull up shot that he's just able to hit, and it's just something that I want to see a little bit more out of from Tatum. Like I don't want to see more of the let's run him to the 3-point line, let him try to catch it and shoot it, and have these plays that again, I love Tatum. I think he's a great bucket getter. He can get any type of bucket he wants, but sometimes the issue I have with Tatum at times is, and again, it's the good with the bad, right? There's times where I just feel like the shot selection is not there for Tatum, and I love Tatum. I think he's a great player, but the shot selection can hurt you and also can help you, right? There's some shots that he shoots that you're like, oh no, why did he shoot that? But it goes in. And then there's going to be other times where I saw last night, especially in the last possession, where it was just kind of like you're guarded. It's tough to like shoot that shot. And, it eventually ended up being a shot clock violation because it hit off the backboard and didn't even touch rim. So again, those are situations where I get worried about with Tatum in some sense.
And I think that comes down to predictability. And to me, that's part of the problem with the bigs they have. Like, you essentially know in any moment like that exactly who's going to get the ball, who's shooting it. And if it's not Tatum, it's 100% going to be Jaylen Brown, but it's almost
Yeah.
certainly going to be Tatum. I don't know, man. That doesn't spell good things when the competition is Giannis Antetokounmpo or Joel Embiid. Like, I think you can get around 76ers just because they're the Sixers and Doc Rivers is their coach. However, like Giannis is going to be a legitimate problem for you guys. He always has been. He's a problem for everybody. But Tatum, as much as he's improved on defense, cannot do everything on the court. He just can't do everything.
Yeah.
And when your bigs, the power forwards and centers on your team are as non-offensive, like they're so non-viable offensively in those big moments. They're almost afterthoughts to a lot of teams, so they don't even have to think about it. So then it just makes the predictability of like, okay, here we're gonna run this, very basic screen and get Tatum out here for this shot. He's gonna get one-on-one ISO guarded, and he's gonna just jack up a three. That's why you're never gonna like it. I mean, he happens to make it because he's one of the best players in the league, but those shots never look good because you didn't set yourself up for success, right? You're basically just putting it on a low percentage shot, hoping this guy can put you on his back and take you to the promised land. But it doesn't spell good things when you have teams like the Bucks who are going to be able to get guaranteed points in the paint, right? That's tough. I still think you guys are easily the second best team in the NBA, personally.
Yeah. And, I think to me, like the Celtics will always be one of the top two teams. I have them personally at number one, and that just might be the homer in me. But at the end of the day, the Boston Celtics are one of the premier teams in the NBA, and that is going to do it for us. That is going to do it for us here on the Charge. Again, we will go over the Western Conference next week. Just ran out of time. I had some obligations that I needed to commit to. And so I do apologize that we're not getting onto the Western Conference as much as we would love to. But remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, we talked about the Eastern Conference Finals. Who's going to be in it in terms of contenders and pretenders. So let us know who you guys think are those contenders and pretenders down below. All right, Pete. That's going to do it for us here. Thanks for coming on again. And we're obviously going to discuss the Western Conference. And I know Sean is making a parade right now, talking about his Sacramento Kings, obviously being in third place right now in the Western Conference. And
Beloved Kings.
We'll talk about them next week as we move on to the Western Conference. So let us know in the comment section down below. Who do you guys think are the contenders and pretenders of the Western Conference? We'd love to know what you guys think before we talk about it in the comment section and the live chat down below. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us here. My name is Bernie. This is Pete.
Thanks for having me, Bernie.
Yeah, it's always fun, teaming up with Pete again, and you guys can check out the catalogs, man. We've had a lot of good memories on this channel. Still do have good memories on this channel, so be willing to take a look at some old stuff, see our takes. Are they good? Are they bad? I'd love to know what you guys think about some of our older takes in the comment section down below. But anyway, guys, that's gonna do it us for here at the Charge. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And we'll catch everybody on next week's episode of The Charge. Peace out, everybody.